On BBC One in a couple of minutes, just when you thought it was safe to switch on, think again. Amity Island's about to relive its worst nightmare in Jaws 2. Here on BBC Two in 15 minutes, we've a spectacular musical finale to this week's One World theme. A celebration of the rich heritage of sounds from all over the planet, One World, One Voice was put together by musician and video maker Kevin Godley and features more than 150 artists ranging from Sting to the Leningrad Symphony Orchestra to the Kodo Drummers. That's after an independent Mark Lawson has rifled through the news media pages to find out what the papers say.
This week's What the Papers Say is presented by Mark Lawson of The Independent.
Hello. What's thick, controversial and in the Sun? The answer is not a gratuitous insult to a Sun columnist, but the British sausage. For on Wednesday, half of the newspaper's front page was allocated to...
The Sun says sausages.
There was once quite a lot of excitement when Esther Ranson discovered a pet dog which could say sausages, so the news that the Sun had managed to say it as well was an interesting development. But the Sun's latest porker had a polemical purpose.
The Sun has just one word for mad cow disease, sausages. And to prove it, we have teamed up with British butchers to bring you 2 free sausages. We have never trusted the so-called experts' view of our food.
But the Sun's attempt to prove that the world would not end with a banger had an interesting background. 9 days previously, as discreetly as page 19 of the Sun had said,
Sun campaign on issue of national importance.
SOS, save our sausage.
Yes, folks, we're calling on all sausage-loving Brits to join forces and save our great British banger from silly Euro burgers.
This, remember, was just before burgers became a dirty word. The Sun's sausage polemic at this stage was a rather different one.
The Europrets reckon our sizzling sausages are too full of fat, too unhygienic, and too full of the wrong cuts of beef. But the Sun says enough is enough.
The next day, the paper promised at the top of page 7.
Want to join our sizzling sausage squadron and get yourself a free Save Our Sausage t-shirt? Then watch for details, only in the Sun this week.
In fact, you had to watch for 8 days for details. And as we saw, by then the message had changed. Very versatile dish, sausages. 1 week's Europhobe casserole can be next week's Farmer Bull's British breakfast. Is it possible that the canny tabloid, 100 weight of sausages in its whopping deep freeze, had adapted the offer to suit events? Indeed, some stars polled by the paper became confused between the two campaigns. Jonathan Ross was pro-British,
I'm just mad about beef sausages.
while EastEnders star Peter Dean was nostalgic for the old battle.
Do they think we fought 2 world wars just to give up our sausages? We'll sizzle them on the beaches. We'll fry them in the skies.
But hang on, there was something odd about those sausages. The May the 15th banger before the mad cow scare is this long, while the May 23rd one is this long. It's not natural. I reckon they've been injecting them with those hormones we've been reading about. And continue to read about this week. The Daily Mail reported a significant defection from the carnivore ranks.
Mother in OXO ad gives up on beef.
The star of the OXO television commercials has given up eating beef because of the scare over mad cow disease, her husband said yesterday. Linda Bellingham, 42, who earned £200,000 from advertising the beef stock tube over the last 7 years, now won't touch the meat.
Short of the news that the Ovaltinis had decided milk drinks were too risky, nothing could hit the dairy industry harder. But on Tuesday, Today reported,
I love beef.
Says OXO Linda. A spokesman for actress Linda Bellingham said,
It is absolutely not true. She had roast beef for dinner only a week ago.
only a week ago, not since, so she skipped it last Sunday. In an atmosphere of suspicion, all behaviour faced examination. But the tabloids moved efficiently from shock mode to comedy mode. The sizzling, sausage-supporting Sun managed to incorporate patriotism, support for the government, and sexism in one story.
Barmy butcher Colin Davies knew just what to do when the mad cow beef scare started to slump in his sales. He put a sign in his window saying,
The only mad cow in this shop is my wife.
But if she was, then some felt she was married to a pig of the sexist variety. According to the Star,
Mad over cow joke.
wife Christine, 39, says she doesn't mind, but 22-year-old Joanne Robinson said the sign was...
Insulting to women.
whatever the other objections to it, at least calling your wife a mad cow is a discernible joke. The odd thing has been the way in which a phrase applying to insanity and cattle has, in what experts are worried may become an epidemic, spread to all other current stories.
Mad oil disease.
Art sales. Will the mad bids disease carry on?
A serious outbreak of bad poetry disease.
None of these expressions was a pun. If they were plays on words, they were under-rehearsed and on a low budget. Even the discreet Financial Times threatened to break out in a headline.
Man in the news. John Selwyn Gummer, knee-deep in
Go on, say it.
a no-win situation.
Tame. But why was everyone trying so hard? The salmonella outbreak produced only a couple of bad jokes about Salman Rushdie, and the listeria scare merely a couple of rhyming headlines about listeria, hysteria. BSE, however, produced a stampede, which reached even the opera critics.
Mad cat disease afflicts the music.
This was a review of the new Hans Werner Henze opera in Berlin, and its connection with the BSE feline seemed to be rather a tangential one.
We are back on the queasy territory of Henze's previous opera, The English Cat.
You may remember that the death of an English cat had started the beef fears, but mad cow and cat disease was proving to be uniquely among British food health controversies, one adaptable to all styles of column.
What a way to run a farm. Mad cows, scams and chaos.
That prefaced the long historical perspective from Norman Stone in the Sunday Times.
It was 17th century Holland that pioneered progressive agriculture. The people had to wrest a living from the salty soil.
The betting before the match was that Sue Arnold, of the scatty, catty, feminine, digressive school of columnists, would struggle to tackle BSE, but she succeeded triumphantly.
Crazy cow eaters over the moo. A PR man for Hilton Hotels told me the following shaggy cow story.
While the more elderly Sunday columnists grumpily insisted that they were still eating beef and it hadn't affected them. A brave claim in the circumstances. Woodrow Wyatt in the News of the World combined the historical perspective and an appeal for calm with his characteristic name-dropping.
Mrs. Corrie didn't stop eating eggs, nor did I.
While in the Mail on Sunday, Sir John Junor succeeded in allying his appeal for moderation with characteristic xenophobia.
Are we really going off our chumps? Education authorities have been taking British beef and bangers off school menus and buying beef from, of all places, Botswana instead. Have we really gone off our rockers?
There was a slice of the beef story for everyone, but the most original came from The Sun.
Big Mac gets gun guard to beat off yobs.
Burger giants McDonald's have posted armed guards at a restaurant.
So it was true. After consuming their cheeseburgers, clients ran around, losing their coordination and lashing out like a cow or a cat with BSE. In fact, not. The guards were there, The Sun revealed.
To beat off British lager lads.
The mad cow epidemic also reminds us of the need for care in using language. For example, we big-bearded heterosexuals might not want to be called beefy anymore. Take Gary Bushell, the television critic of The Sun. If I called Gary beefy, it might be thought in the present climate that I was saying he was dangerous and ought to be put down. You have to be so careful with words. As Bushell himself has just learned, The Sun reported last week,
Rap for The Sun. The Sun is rapped today for using the words poof and poofter to describe homosexuals. The Press Council ruled that the words used in Gary Bushell's column were an unnecessary, crude abuse.
The Sun usually hides Press Council adjudications against it as small and as far inside the paper as possible. But it wanted its readers to see this one. The paper was preparing a campaign. Having stood up for the traditional British breakfast, it was now supporting the traditional British bedtime. On the same day as the adjudication appeared, an editorial carried a headline perhaps most fairly described as paradoxical.
You can't call them poofters.
Readers of The Sun know and speak and write words like poof and poofter.
Did The Sun mean that their readers could do all three at once, a brave claim, or did they divide into three sets? Some of them know it, some of them can write it, and some of them can speak it. But The Sun was on the attack. 2 days later, a front-page news story.
Mums fight gays in plain brawl at 30,000 feet. Fury as kids see kissing.
And then, 2 days later, there was a dramatic new twist in the story, as The Sun printed a picture of Gary Bushell out on the town with another man, a judge. Sorry, the style is infectious. It was, in fact, Judge Michael Argyle, who was partnering Gary in an Oxford University debate. They were opposing the idea of gay rights. The Sun carried an extract from Bushell's speech.
We must defeat militant gay cult.
The Sun omitted to mention for some days that Bushell and his friend the judge had lost the debate. But its sister paper, The News of the World, offered...
A look at olden ways. Now, poofter's a naughty word.
All our yestergays.
We asked Oxford Professor of Bibliography and Textual Criticism Don Mackenzie to research the words brainy people have used through the ages to describe homosexual men.
Mackenzie inevitably became...
Don the Don.
Don the Don wrote that hounding nouns like queer, queen and pansy were a relatively new development.
The closest even Shakespeare gets to any of our terms is the clumsy masculine whore and male varlet.
The Don's measured words were, however, rather missed by the News of the World cartoonist.
Gadzooks, has anyone here seen Bottom?
And by an extraordinary phone-in.
You, the jury.
If you are a homosexual, phone one of our vote lines below and tell us which name you prefer.
Pofner, 0898 100 181.
If you're heterosexual, phone one of these vote line numbers to tell us which name you feel is acceptable.
Pofter, 0898 400 781.
And so on. Electronic apartheid. We must hope that the News of the World had its most liberal telephonists on the homosexual list. It strikes you that the smart thing for homosexuals to do would be to ring up and say that they've seen Gary Bushel's picture, and could they have his phone number? But these features may matter more than the usual tabloid brutalities, because they coincided with what may be a new mood of intolerance towards homosexuals. The Independent reported,
The police are prosecuting more homosexual men than before, according to research by gay rights activists.
and the Sunday Telegraph, from a less obviously sympathetic position, noted,
There has recently been an alarming increase of violent assaults on homosexuals.
but the Telegraph refused to support the Press Council in its views on vocabulary.
The Press Council does not bat an eye at four-letter words, so why should it censure poofter and woofter? We would like to propose a compromise. Let the Sun agree to stop describing homosexuals as poofters if the Guardian stops describing them as gays.
Is there any difference between the F and C words relating to sex, which quality newspapers are currently printing with exceptional liberation, and the words for sexual orientation? I think there is. Expletives offend widely but unevenly across society, and are not intended when printed to direct venom towards a particular group. It's also worth pointing out that The Sun seems recently to have expanded the possibilities of expression for columnists. Here's Gary Bushel, TV critic, on the documentary series Stalin.
It must be true what they say about nobody being all bad. Even Stalin banned poofs.
Any comment, no matter how foul, is fair comment for Gary. A big lad himself, he writes of a well-built actress.
Regarding the comic strip's feeble Falkland saga, if Dawn French gets any fatter, she'll be able to play South Georgia on her own.
Bushel speaks for the ancient British traditions of heterosexuality and beef sausage eating, and now that comparatively recent ancient British tradition of watching satellite TV.
I feel sorry for viewers without Sky.
Sky and The Sun are bedfellows. So successful was Bushel as a critic that his paper seconded him to reporting, dispatching him to Berlin just before the wall came down.
Bushel on the Bosch. Sunman breaks into East Berlin. A grey old time for sauerkrauts.
After 2 days behind the Iron Curtain in East Berlin, I can see why the krauts are sour. Life there is unbelievably sad.
Bushel represents an interesting new trend in tabloid columnists. In recent years, they've generally been female and forthright rather than openly appalling. Jean Rook, Linda Lee Potter, Fiona MacDonald Hull, Nina Mishkow. The new set are male and seem to be an SAS of print outrages, deliberately baiting the liberals. Bushel's friend in Venom at The Sun is Richard Littlejohn, signed from the Standard for a large fee, who predictably came to his colleague's defence.
Lou down on gays.
Call me old-fashioned, but I've never been able to understand what men find attractive about other men. The prospect of sharing my bed with a slender youth or a beefy docker is simply too horrible to contemplate. I even shaved off my moustache when I started getting fan mail from shirt lifters. But I don't mind what they do to each other, as long as they do it in private, keep quiet about it, and don't expect the rest of us to either participate or pay for it.
Personally, I've no objection to what two men do together in the columns of The Sun. Gary and Richard can do what they like, as long as I don't have to know very much about it. What is worrying is that they seem to be moving tabloid punditry to a new pitch of excitability. Here's Little John on junior doctors.
Kenneth Clark should not give in to blackmailing junior doctors. They say they're forced to work 120 hours a week, but there's a great difference between working and being on call. For much of that time, they're tucked up in bed.
As a weekly newspaper columnist, Little John should know. He isn't missing the point all the time The Sun are paying his wages. A lot of the time, he's just waiting to miss the point. Like his friend Gary, Little John doesn't like homosexuals very much. Managing to combine monarchism and intolerance in one column, he wrote last year,
Don't fall for age hype, Dr. Di. Princess Di was pictured at the weekend sharing a sofa and a joke with a couple of AIDS sufferers.
For Little John, this was one of the ways in which
The government has been conned. If you steer clear of sleeping with woofters and drug users, you should be safe.
Strangely, the one recent subject on which Little John has omitted to pronounce is mad cow disease. The public has a right to know. Do Richard Littlejohn and Gary Bushel eat beef? And if so, did they start writing like they do before or after they started eating it? Good night.
Friday's What the Papers Say at 7:15 is a special edition as part of our Tales from Prague season, looking at press coverage leading up to the Czech elections.
Czechoslovakia, country of unique irony, where university lecturers were made window cleaners and where a playwright is now president. The bizarre extremes of this extraordinary society are further revealed on Monday at 8 in Absurdistan, nickname for a curious nation. And at 9:20, a small-town jamboree lurches towards anarchy as provincial jealousies and petty bureaucracy provide a farcical combination. The Fireman's Ball from Amadeus director Milos Forman completes the first of the Tales from Prague, Monday night on 2.